Okay, I hope I can unmute myself. Great. I've been struggling. Sometimes Twitter Spaces are, uh, yeah, not as easy. Time for Elon to count the number of bots and then make an alternative bit and solve this issue. Um, yeah, great. Let's get going. So, welcome to today's Twitter Space. We skipped last week's one, and it's actually going to be also the first topic. We're going to discuss this a bit. Um, we actually had a company trip. It was the second company trip in the company history. First one was at the beginning of the year. I shared about that in the transparency report that we published. Last week was the second one. We got the entire company together. Um, it was optional for people to join. I think 75% of the workforce joined. Uh, we are over 100 people, and I think we were a bit over 80 people together. It was just super nice. I mean, at the end, the majority of people are employed in Singapore, and we get to see each other pretty much every day. But there's obviously another part that doesn't have the same kind of culture experience on the interaction and the engagement. So always good to kind of have everyone together. So and then since it was quite important to us to really spend as much time together, we skipped the Twitter space, and so we're kind of catching up on that. But yeah, I think that is good that way. So for those of you joining first time, we're doing those Twitter spaces on Tuesday, always 12:30 Europe time, which is 6:30 p.m. here in Singapore. And we talk company stuff, crypto stuff, general markets, and we're going to do that today as well. So topics for today, Fabio and I just shared this briefly. Obviously, company trip, I'm going to ask Fabio a bit to share a bit. I think it's always a bit different to kind of see it from the team member, not so much from the CEO. Quickly, a few thoughts on the transparency report that we shared. Obviously, going to talk about Bitcoin bottom, Bitcoin cycle, what's happening in this space, and then yeah, let's see if you have any questions that we want to address. But let's get going. Fabio, how was the past week? You're back home. Are you missing everyone already? Share your thoughts.
Yeah, good day, everybody. Yeah, of course. For me, it was absolutely amazing. As many of you know, I'm based in the Netherlands, so I spent all my days alone at home, working from my headquarters. And for me, I'm a very social guy. Probably also the reason why I work in community. For me, it was absolutely fantastic to see everybody in person. There's a lot of people I've never met before, and we spent a whole week together. And everything from working together, brainstorming on important things, to socializing, having a few drinks, and just getting to see a little bit of Dubai. It was amazing from beginning to end, and I have to say it was yeah, I was a little bit sad that I needed to leave in the end. It's a big difference if you meet up in person and you have the opportunity to gather in small teams and to brainstorm on certain things or work out a few difficulties. Yeah, it's a lot different than doing it via Zoom and um, everything online. So for me, it's also I would never have gone there by myself. It's not a location that I'm particularly interested in, but in retrospect, I'm really glad we were there, and it gave me a few great insights. I was really blown away by the city and by the people there. It's crazy what they did there.
Yeah, and I think team-wise, it's always interesting to kind of see the dynamics a bit when you're like face to face with everyone versus if you're on Zoom with everyone. So I felt that was also super nice. Yeah, so yeah, good experience. Yeah, uh, we discussed next team trip will probably be to Singapore, and then depending on the uh, COVID situation, we're gonna make it actually mandatory, but we're gonna see a bit. Also in next quarter onwards, or from July onwards, it's gonna be mandatory for people to come to the office in Singapore on a part-time basis. So they have to come 2 days a week. We feel this really is gonna improve the culture even more. so far, actually, most team members actually liked that suggestion. I think there was not much of a pushback, and yeah, but that's also expected. I saw this really funny quote on Twitter where I can't remember who posted that, who said, um, Tim Cook, Apple CEO, basically asked, I think, team members now to come back for 2 days a week. And then if Steve Jobs were still the CEO, he would ask people to come back 5 days a week, and he would call that part-time. I thought that was hilarious. Um, yeah, so that's been a bit of the yeah, the kind of past week situation. Anything else we need to add there from you? Anything other thoughts?
Um, uh, I guess I really like the joke between Tim Cook and Steve Jobs. There is one thing we also, of course, had this meeting, and maybe a small reference to the work culture we have in a few sub teams. It's of course not true for the whole company, but we made some fun. I think you were in this meeting as well, Julian, where I saw that meme that there is a meme and it says, I left the 9 to 5 world to work for an innovative startup to work 24/7. And it's not, of course, it's not mandatory at Cake to work 24/7, but we have a lot of team members that really love what we are doing, and that, like, would count myself among them. That I really like to focus on my work and to work a little bit more than what is expected, and some of us, we really feel the mission to do something that has an impact. So yeah, I completely get the joke with Tim Cook and Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I felt that was so funny when I saw that. Cool. The other topic I want to address, we're gonna link it up again, is the transparency report. Super late this time. Came out on 9th of May. We actually wanted to get it out mid-April. It's just been so many things happening, and we just dragged and dragged and dragged it out. So that was not all too good. It actually stems from the board report internally having been late. We finished that by the end of April, when normally we take about 2 weeks. Just had a lot to do with travel and then operations and everything just getting larger, and yeah, some of the processes not being as efficient as they were yeah, 6 months ago. So we definitely have to improve that. And yeah, we are, but it's that's then these things kind of get dragged yeah, out where, well, because we focus on other stuff. I think one of the key updates, I mean, that's what we are leading with. I think reward wise, you as our customer had a fantastic Q1. We paid you $73 million. Yeah, I reflected a lot on crypto prices, the crypto downtrend. I mean, crypto really, really got slaughtered in Q1, kept getting slaughtered in Q2. But yeah, depending on how you were diversified, you actually made, you gained in dollars because of the rewards, because of the cash flow. So all of that, yeah, I think really, really positive for you. And I think, yeah, the feedback is really good on that. Um, we launched a $100 million venture arm called Cake DeFi Ventures. We grew the company by 28 team members, which is the strongest quarter we've had. Maybe interesting update, most companies have now stopped hiring in Singapore in Q2. We are still on the same pace. Yeah, so if you are looking into joining a crypto company, we are aggressively hiring still, despite most companies actually having stalled their hiring. um, yeah, I reflect a bit on the finances. We are financially super, super healthy. We have easy 3 to 4 year runways, even if crypto would drop massively. So all of that, I think, yeah, quite good and quite strong. Yeah, I think a couple of things you felt in Q1. We definitely grew the PR and comms team. We had a lot more articles, news articles, events, and you're going to see more of that. So that's definitely good. I think the two teams on the marketing side we still have to grow is, on the one hand, the performance marketing. The other one, I think, at the moment, Fabio and Jessica are pretty much lone warriors when it comes to social media and to community and the influencer side. So we definitely need to grow that side as well. So yeah, that's good. And then I think launch wise, product wise, we did have a little bit of a delay on some launches, but that just also had, because of the hiccups we had really massive growth on the database, so we had to fix that. We did improve our UX and the KYC flow, so that was, I think, the biggest kind of impact, especially new customers saw. So yeah, I think all of that was just really good to see. And then obviously also sharing about this quarter. This quarter is all about adding more blockchains, so going multi-chain, and yeah, I think that's the key kind of focus here. Yeah, other than that, I think you can read the rest for yourself. I don't know, Fabio, if there's anything else that stood out for you, reflecting on Q1. Feels like it's like 10 years ago already, but I don't know if there's other kind of points you want to bring up or think as a reflection would be really interesting.
There was definitely it was definitely a boring Q1 for existing customers because most of the work that was done was addressing the foundation to make onboarding and KYC account verification as simple and as easy as possible. And of course, as an existing customer, you don't really feel that or you don't really see that. But this definitely reflected in our numbers, and maybe just as a small hint for the coming 6 to 9 months, let's say until the end of the year, there will be some juicy things that you definitely are going to appreciate as an existing customer. So we are focusing on a few existing products, and as Julian just mentioned, we are also focusing on expanding the ecosystem. And this is, of course, something that the whole community was asking for. The feedback, we always are looking at feedback that you are providing us on social media, on Twitter, on Reddit, on Telegram, and expanding the system, meaning adding new ecosystems or new coins, and revamping existing products was something that almost everybody was looking forward to, and this is what we are focusing on right now.
Yeah, definitely cool. Cool. I think on the update side, I'm checking also the questions. I think there's not much more there, so I would love to talk about Bitcoin, the general markets. Um, what are your thoughts at the moment? What do you hear? I mean, it's been a bit of a sideways around 30,000 for the past, yeah, kind of couple of days. We had a bit of a drop last week. There was a bit of a panic with Terra. Yeah, it feels like it's also super long ago, but yeah. What are your thoughts at the moment?
Oh, there was you could call it a Terra earthquake going through the whole crypto space. For me, this was an insane event. I remember the last time I felt like this or something that was comparable was maybe BitConnect. Of course, they're two completely different things. Like BitConnect was a straight up Ponzi scheme, and Terra, I think, or at least I'd like to think that they had good intentions. It's just the mechanics that kind of didn't work out and led into some kind of death spiral with Terra losing 30 to 40 billion within 2 weeks. So price wise going from 120 to 1 cent. I think there were even times where it was below 1 cent, and this had some ripple effects through the whole space. So people kind of distrusted stable coins in general. USDT Tether saw a small sell off. I think DAI is not holding up very well. Like in general, all stable coins were kind of tested. I think the only one that hold up well and even performed was USDC. I think at one point it was
Yeah,
up like 4 or 5%.
that
Um,
scared the living bejesus out of me, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This was, of course, happening during our team event, and it was so funny because we have so many people that follow the news and were into everything that was happening, and everybody was glued to their phones and exchanging like, "Oh, have you seen this? And have you seen that?" And it was, yeah, for me very exciting. I'm sort of a crypto drama queen, so I really enjoy when things are going sideways in the crypto space, just because there is interaction and people are talking and. Yeah, of course, this also had a big impact on price. I think on some exchanges, Bitcoin dropped to 25, 26K ish. And I think that it was the longest downturn we ever see in Bitcoin. This was 7 weeks in a row,
Hmm.
not like in price measured, but just in the time. We had like 7 red candles in a row. So the current one would become the eighth one, and I think the longest down streak we had till today was 6 weeks in December and January 2018, 2019. I think somewhere around that we had 6 red weekly candles, and now we're on 7. So of course, as the name of the Twitter space Is the Bitcoin bottom reached? Let's maybe talk a little bit about that and where we could go from here, or what the rest of the year has planned, or how the rest of the year will play out.
Yeah. Yeah, I see I mean, the events and the situation, I think, is very similar. Was quite interesting. I'm at an investors event at the moment. Elon also spoke yesterday. There was quite a lot of discussion on crypto and markets, obviously in general. Um, yeah, it's interesting to see a bit of the sentiment. A lot of people talking about a year or 12 to 18 months of really kind of slowdown in crypto and in the general markets. Yeah, uh, the key point is I personally think, for example, current prices are outstanding buying prices. And I've actually gotten liquid capital ready to kind of deploy it and I'm mainly personally going to buy Ethereum and DeFi chain. Our company treasury just has a lot of Bitcoin. So I want to diversify from that a bit because I own basically half of that treasury, not exactly, but I own about half of it. So I need to diversify from that myself. And but the key thing to say here is the question is over what time frame are we going to see this up and down? And we can easily see over the next 2 years up and down, which doesn't mean that maybe in 4 or 5 years you're going to see $500,000 in Bitcoin, and you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, I should have bought at 30,000 right now. The question is, at what point is this market gonna turn around? And I think catching that bottom and catching that right time, it may actually be that it's the bottom right now, right? But the question is, how long does it take until this really materializes? So that's just a big question at the moment. Don't forget, there's still two Fed announcements coming out in June and July that are very likely going to have a half percentage point interest rate increase. June 1st is going to be the start of the balance sheet kind of getting offloaded step by step over the next 3 years. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty hitting the market. Now, the other side to that is inflation seems to be peaking. There seems to be some kind of easing of the debt system. I don't know how Ukraine conflict is planning out, but that seems to kind of get less and less interest. And at some point, prices in general are just so low that people are like, okay, now it's starting to become a no-brainer. Um, so that all kind of sits a bit, yeah, uh, uh, against each other. So yeah, I think fantastic prices, interesting opportunities. But the question really is over what time frame? Is this going to be 3 months? Is this going to be 3 years? Both is definitely possible until we see like significantly higher prices again. And I think you just want to keep that a bit in mind. I don't know. What thoughts do you have, Fabio?
So if I would get out my crystal ball and just let's put in some astrology, some TA, some on-chain and some on-chain data and some polls of influencers. So if you look at for example, Plan B, he made a poll and he asked, hey, is the bottom in? Are we going to see lower prices? And I think 55 to 60% agree that we probably will see lower prices. So there's a slight tendency to bearish. The same goes for another big influencer, Benjamin Cohen. I like to look at those two because they have such a big following and like hundred thousands of people participating in those polls. So they're pretty representative when it comes to the crypto space. And then of course you have what levels are people looking at? And I think you made a great point when you said, is it going to matter if you buy at 25 or at 20 or at 30 when we actually will go into the six figures over a long period of time? And right now you have a few indicators that seem pretty reasonable to buy. If you look at, for example, at the weekly, as I said, we had 7 weekly candles in a row that turned red. This was the longest. So it's practically a little bit like a coin flip. If you have seven coin flips that are heads, there's a big chance that the next one is going to be tails. Actually, it's 50-50, but um, uh, the same goes for, like, we have these levels when around 20,000 was the old all-time high. Bitcoin never went on below the all-time highs. This would practically break market structures. If you would break 20K, it's not impossible, but a lot of people are looking at that level, the 200 weekly moving average that was support for many times is currently at 22,000. You have the Mayer multiple that is looking quite good. You have the liquid supply on exchanges that is consistently decreasing. So there's a lot of on-chain data, a lot of let's say astrology that is pointing to that it's quite reasonable to load up. And also, if you look at a weekly time frame, you had this big capitulation wick that got bought up pretty fast, and we were actually able to close the week above 30,000. And a lot of people said, hey, if we are actually able to close the week above 30,000 and hold the following week above 30 as well, so this week, this would actually be a bullish sign. But of course, as you also brought up, we are kind of dependent on general market and the Fed, and let's just say risk on assets and what happens there, because we're strongly correlated with them. And these things, I guess nobody can tell you where they will play out. For me personally, I'm in it for the long run. I see this for a 5-year investment or a 10-year investment. And me personally, I don't care if I buy at 20 or at 25 or at 30. I think everything below 30 is a great opportunity to get exposure if you're not in yet. And if you're already in, why not add to your position at these prices?
No, 100% agree. I think, key is just, can you stomach the volatility? Obviously, getting cash flow on your crypto makes that stuff way easier. So if you aren't doing that so far already, a little bit of a plug here. What a surprise. Go to kktfi.com and sign up and get cash flow on your crypto. Also, I think I should have mentioned that before. If you're looking for a fantastic employer, check out our job offering. Go to kktfi.com/jobs. We're hiring aggressively. I wouldn't be surprised if the general markets kind of act in a similar way. Also, it's crazy right now. If you look at the US dollar, I think the US dollar is close to a 20-year high. The euro is close to parity with the dollar. Even the Swiss franc, that normally is always the safe haven, had pretty much no chance against the dollar. So, over the past 6 months, the dollar was the game in town. It was very difficult to outperform the US dollar. And which is normal. As soon as interest rates go up, suddenly the dollar becomes the attractive asset. Questions just for how long? When is this gonna reverse? And when do people always kind of realize, okay, these are just little paper things with funny faces on it. But the more of them there are, which is called inflation, the less valuable they become. And so that's always a key question here. But yeah.
Maybe just to have some fun, like Bitcoin is currently down 36%, Ethereum is down 44% year to date. DeFi chain, which hold up and is like a bigger holding amongst our customers, is only down 10% year to date. But fun fact is, if you're 100% in Bitcoin this year, so you would be down year to date 36%, which is actually not 100% true, because we had like 8.3% inflation. So you're actually down 8% more than just these 36%.
Oh, great. Thanks for the thanks for the encouraging words.
Sorry.
No. I mean, but that's how it is. I mean, I do believe 2020 and 2021 were so outstanding years as an investor of risk on that. 2022 and 2023, I think, are a bit of the counterbalance to that. So, there's no free lunch, and I think we have to kind of just admit that. Cool. These are the main things I would have for now. Are there points or thoughts, questions that you see, Fabio, that we need to address, or additional points you want to bring up?
I guess one of the things, and it got also asked among, so we have three US dollar stablecoins on Cake. We have USDT, USDC, and DUSD. And maybe, Julian, can you explain a little bit what different kind of stablecoins there are and what their benefits and their, let's say, negatives or pros and cons are? Because I think a few people, they question stablecoins in general just because what happened to UST. But I think all of the stablecoins that we have on Cake are, of course, they are like the bigger ones or the biggest ones or the most credible ones. And also they kind of have a very different faith, or they're structured very different than USDT. And maybe there is a little bit of uncertainty of users when it comes to stablecoins in general. Maybe this is could be a good topic to briefly touch on.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's a really important point at the moment. If whenever you try to create something that's stable against something else, there has to be an opportunity for people to kind of benefit from when it is off. So, for example, if you want to make something stable against the dollar, then if it's, let's say, a little bit more than a dollar, there has to be an incentive for someone to do something so that the price actually goes down again, and the same to get the price up. We call this an arbitrage, which basically means it's pretty much a risk-free possibility that then kind of always puts the price back to where it's supposed to be. It's actually the same thing as ETFs work, for example. It's just a wrapper with underlying assets, for example, stocks. And so in theory, the ETF should always be the same price as the underlying. And so you could arbitrage that out in case it would be offset. And so how do stablecoins achieve that? Well, there's three different ways to do it. And it always is about the arbitrage, right? So you always have to ask yourself, how does the arbitrage make it possible for people to move the price into the opposite direction that the rest of the market actually at the moment thinks the price should be at, right? So if the first one is it's backed by actual dollars, there's a typical Tether model. And here the arbitrage works that if the token trades above the stable price, so above a dollar, you can you basically mint or you bring dollars into the system, and then you mint more of these tokens, and you can sell these tokens at $1.01. So you would almost make a cent profit on every dollar you buy. The same is possible for the reverse. So if it's trading at 99 cents, any arbitrage trader could buy it at 99 cents, but then sell the actual dollar for a dollar. So it would also make, again, a cent in profit. The key question here obviously is, and that's the question for the arbitrage trader, are there actual dollars behind it? And this is a humongous question, especially when it comes to Tether. This has been an ongoing question for a long time. I mean, Tether has, especially over the past 7 days, received a lot of these redemptions. USDT has been trading under a dollar for quite some time, and so people buy these tokens and then redeem them for actual dollars. I think their CTO, Paolo Ardioni, I never know how to pronounce his name, even said something on Twitter that they redeemed close to $8 billion in actual tokens. And the other part here is, I mean, this is impressive, right? And kind of highlights, okay, this looks good, but that doesn't mean that it's fully backed, right? So that doesn't mean that you actually have every single last dollar of a token backed by actual dollars. It just means in this case that 8 billion were backed. And so people still have a lot of skepticism there. What's missing here is what, for example, Circle has with USDC, or what Binance USD has, or Paxos has, that are actual proper audited statements. And Tether always has this really weird kind of story. So yeah, that doesn't mean that Tether is not backed. It just it's difficult to say that you can be sure that Tether is backed. And I kind of criticize all the Bitcoin maximalists here a bit, because for some weird reason, on the one hand, their credo is always don't trust, verify. But then with Tether, this goes out of the window. And my personal conspiracy theory here always is that this is because of Blockstream, because they have this interconnection with Tether. And so that's where this sentiment comes from. But again, this is a bit of a personal kind of thought here. But in theory, I mean, anyone who says Tether is not backed is just as much lying as everyone who says Tether is backed, because we really don't know. Yeah, so and so that's the key question there. The second opportunity or the possibility to create this arbitrage is via another cryptocurrency. So this would mean instead of backing a dollar stablecoin, with dollars, you can back it, for example, with ETH or with Bitcoin or with other coins. And so it's the exact same mechanism. There's a price oracle that defines the price, and you can redeem the token versus the crypto that's the underlying. And it's exactly the same thing as with dollars. The upside here is that it's backed by crypto. The advantage here, obviously, is that it's completely transparent. You don't need this audit. The downside is that it's not actual dollars, right? So there's been this massive discussion what happens if Ethereum or Bitcoin or something is not really doing well. You may have these massive issues. But from everything that we see so far, dollars-backed stablecoins and crypto-backed stablecoins, they seem to be stable. They seem to be safe. They seem to have been working. DAI, which is the largest crypto-backed stablecoin, has been around for years, and it's a really, really large project. The last possibility was that of it providing an algorithmic arbitrage, and that's a completely different model. Here you have an algorithm that allows you to mint and destroy the stablecoin um, based on a fixed number. And the idea of minting them is quite interesting because you basically burn a token, and based on the price of that token, you mint the number of stablecoins. If the token's worth $5, you mint 5 of those stablecoins. The problem of that becomes when you want to destroy the stablecoin, because when you destroy the stablecoin, you basically mint the original token. But so now here is where the real underlying problem lies. And that's why so many people always criticize those algorithmic stablecoins. Um, if you always think that there has to be someone with an advantage, right? Otherwise, you don't do this arbitrage. And so if you ask yourself, who has the loss in this idea, then it's always the other side, right? The other party. The problem on these algorithmic stablecoins is when you go the other way. So when you burn the stablecoin and you create this new token, you tend to press the price down because you mint more of these tokens. That's very different to a crypto-backed stablecoin where you're not really minting any tokens. You're not minting more crypto. It just gets backed by crypto. Where if you mint new tokens, you have this massive inflation. The problem is if you create a death spiral where the price of this new token keeps going down because of inflation, and then you print more and more and more, and you start printing exponentially more with every more burn. And that is exactly what happened when this UST, this Terra project, started redeeming their UST. And this was obviously this massive news where this $50 billion stablecoin, $50 billion project completely went to zero, where an $18 billion stablecoin basically completely depegged and was impossible to bring back to the bag. More and more of these projects are following right now where they are destabilizing. And now, obviously, we, for example, on Cake, we have Tether listed, we have USDC listed, and we also have a stable coin for DeFi chain listed, which is the ticker is DUSD. And a lot of people were getting a bit worried on what happens if this is the next thing. But DUSD was designed on purpose very differently. First of all, it's partly backed by crypto. So it actually has a part backing by crypto, and that's really, really important. But also, the algo doesn't allow for minting of DFI from DUSD. And the reason why this is important is because that completely stops that negative feedback loop. It does have one downside, and that downside is that if prices crash dramatically, there may be a temporary lowering of DUSD, and we see this. I think DUSD right now has been trading, let me just look, I think at 96 cents or something. So it's slightly down, and it just takes a little bit until the market kind of catches up again, and then it's going to go back to $1. And there are already mechanisms suggested that this can go faster. But the key thing is that for DUSD to completely destabilize, it's almost impossible because it's partly backed by crypto, and because the algo part of it is not a loop, and that's super, super, super important. So from everything that we believe, for us as a company, it was safe to list DUSD. It's just a matter of probably a little bit of time until DUSD is back to $1. Right now it's at 96 cents. So yeah, it's just slightly down, and it kind of fluctuates a bit, and then it's gonna go back up over time. So we feel fairly certain that this is not gonna teabag and completely wipe everything out.
And of course, there is always another side to that trade. So I remember Tether being unpegged to the dollar for multiple times, and of course, the whole market is starting to panic. I remember like my DMs on Twitter and my DMs on Telegram are open, and I got a lot of messages from people that have a large portion of their life savings in Tether, and I got a lot of messages asking, hey, should I sell Tether at 85 cents? So practically losing 15%. And should I hop over to another stablecoin? Should I go into USDC? So people, there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, and a lot of doubt. And among multiple stablecoins, now, of course, I can not promise you that Tether will go back to $1, but until now, it always did. So you have the other side of the trade. That these are people that have confidence, that are not affected by fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that feel, hey, this is just the market being irrational. This is a mispriced opportunity. So I'm buying Tether at 85 cents, and I wait a few weeks, and I practically make a 15% trade. And I think you and u-zyn are also using the opportunity, especially when
Correct.
it comes to DUSD. If there is a 5% or a 10% arbitrage opportunity, this is pretty. I'm choosing my words maybe not so carefully, but it's for a lot of people this is easy money because they let their emotions in not into their investment decisions, and they say, hey, this is just people panicking, people feeling that the whole ecosystem of billions of dollars is going to implode, while in fact it's just a few investors affected by their emotions, and the price will recover back to its peg within a few weeks. So there's always these two sides: people panicking and people taking advantage of the opportunity.
Full on. I mean, I think that's yeah, super relevant. So yeah. Um, yeah, so it's gonna be quite interesting to see like how this is gonna play out long term. I've always been super skeptical of the algo stable coins. That's also why we never listed them on Cake, and why I personally never invested in them. The thing is always, how do you push the boundary, right? And is crypto, like, do stable coins have to be crypto backed? Is there another way around it? There are, in theory, right? So this is like an in theory an attack vector as well, even on crypto backed stable coins. It's just super hard to do it there. But let's say there is some discount in, let's say there would be an insane discount in DAI, right? And let's say it's all backed by ETH, just to make it very simple. And let's say there's a 10% discount. Well, you would go and you would buy up all the DAI there is, and you would redeem it against ETH, and then you would sell this ETH. And in theory, you should be getting out about 10% more ETH than you put in. The problem is you start selling ETH. And so over time, obviously, the price would drop further down. This would liquidate some of the vaults where the DAI is in. So then this DAI would get force sold. And so this could actually create some kind of a dangerous kind of cycle. We did have that issue almost with DAI some time ago. I think even Justin Sun was almost involved in unintentionally getting liquidated for quite a large amount, and people got really scared about $100 million market sell order. But the thing about that is that they're relatively easy to stop and relatively easy to kind of halt. So it's not as easy to actually, they don't become this avalanche where they just become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. They really kind of, like, they do need that kind of frenzy. It's really difficult to really create them, and so far we have not seen this even in DAI. So again, I think people are still a bit more skeptical about the crypto stable coins than crypto-backed stable coins than fiat-backed stable coins. But yeah, it's, from everything we know today, it's unlikely that there's any issue in there. But yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why you're making so much money on some of the crypto stuff. It is because there are still some things that are unknown, and you just cannot know, right? And so with that always comes uh, some part of a risk, and you just kind of have to calculate that in. And for example, for myself, the risk is acceptable. And you may say, no, for me, that risk is not acceptable. I prefer to hold actual dollars, and I prefer to put those dollars into the bank account and get 1 or 2% in the bank account. and that's always a bit of the trade-off there. So yeah, um, just my thoughts here. Um, any other topics, Fabio?
Maybe to go into broader crypto news things, like we initially we made a short list of topics that we could touch on. One is of course, I think you saw that live. Did you saw the presentation that Elon Musk gave at
Yep.
I think in Miami? Maybe you
Yep.
can talk a little bit about that.
Um, yeah, I mean, which part specifically? I mean, he spoke about I think 10 to 11 things.
Dogecoin, the
Mm.
economy, and Twitter.
Okay, so economy stuff I mentioned that prior. Elon, I mean, is definitely a bit more cautious right now when it comes to the entire economy from what he shared during the conversation. So yeah, but I don't think that comes much of a surprise. It's not like that he thinks now like we're gonna all get wiped out. I think it's more he's just a bit more cautious. The second part was on Twitter. I mentioned at the very beginning. Um, from everything he shared, he does want to go through with Twitter, but he just has some skepticism on how many bots there are. And I mean, this is insane. If you just look at any tweet, right, and you just look at um, how many comments there are beneath some of those tweets and how insane they are. I mean, yeah, I don't know if the 5% ratio that Twitter announced is actually true. It sounds more like it's way more, but yeah. And that actually ties in right away with Doge. So he insinuated about Twitter going the route of becoming a super app like WeChat and integrating a payment system. And then obviously he always kind of mentions jokingly, but you never know how much he chokes and how much he really thinks this is serious. Adding Doge there, and I mean all this I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, for him to share, and yeah, it was also quite interesting. He spent quite a lot of time with us, like an hour 15 or something. And then at the end, I think he was completely late for another meeting, and yeah, it was just yeah, it was just interesting to see him sitting there completely calm and peaceful, and then suddenly he's like, oh crap, I'm late for a meeting, and then he like, chat, okay, bye bye, and then he left. So that was just quite funny.
We also saw, I think Bukele, president of El Salvador, he gave out a whole list of countries and central banks and just people joining him, I think in El Salvador soon-ish, to talk about Bitcoin and nation state adoption. I think there was no, let's say, triple A countries. Most of them are like the emerging markets, and that's it's not G7 or G20 countries. It's more let's say a third down the list or lower. But it's definitely interesting, and it's especially also these countries that would benefit probably the most, especially if they adopt early and Bitcoin plays out as we think it will play out. So I'm watching with two eyes what is happening there. And I think he also made a prediction in the beginning of the year that there will be three countries adopting Bitcoin as sort of a legal tender, or central banks that will adopt it over the course of this year. And I think we got already one in Central Africa. It's interesting to see how this plays out over the course of the year. Have you looked at the list? Do you think there is
I
something interesting among that?
I did look at the list. I didn't see that there was much. I don't know, any country that kind of moves the needle. I mean, there's always two sides to that, right? And I just want to be very clear. Um, the key thing, and I just want to be very careful in just anything that touches Bitcoin. It becomes positive for some good reason, right? So I just, to me, Bitcoin is a means of something. It's not that just because you own Bitcoin or because you believe in Bitcoin, it makes you a good person, or it makes you. I feel sometimes I don't know. People are so religious about their investment, and it doesn't have anything to do with Bitcoin. It has to do with any investment. They're so religious about their investment that whatever or whoever talks about or is interested in investment suddenly becomes their god or becomes their whatever kind of yeah. It's sometimes I feel it's a bit. You just have to still you have to take a step back and then really kind of reflect. And yeah, especially in this case, a lot of the countries on that list were, I don't know, not the countries that I would um, describe with a high degree of um, low corruption. A lot of these countries had a lot of corruption. And it's not like a statement that I'm making. These are like, if you go to the countries list of where in the world there's a lot of corruption. Of course, you can say that this list of countries is influenced by the US, and for sure it is. But um, yeah, I think there are certain countries that just have higher corruption. And again, you can adopt Bitcoin all you want. If that country, and some of these countries are really, really rich when it actually comes to commodities, or when it actually comes to yeah, oil. Yeah, I mean, you look at Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela's issue is not that it doesn't have. I mean, I didn't know that Venezuela is the richest country in the world when it comes to oil. It has the most oil in the world. I didn't know that. But that's absolutely incredible. And so the reason why Venezuela is so poor has nothing to do with the dollar. It has nothing to do with the US. It has everything to do with the corruption in that country. And the same is true for Bitcoin and the country. So if that country adopts Bitcoin, but it's actually all about the corruption, yeah, it doesn't matter if they adopt Bitcoin or they adopt Ethereum or they don't adopt this stuff. It's actually going to make it worse. And it's not only going to make it worse for the country, it's actually going to make it worse for everyone, because suddenly other countries are going to realize that this country is actually going to use Bitcoin for their corruption, and that always kind of could lead to a massive pushback. So um, it's always a bit of this question: is any Bitcoin usage good? Of course not. Like you would have someone blow up, like do the Twin Towers, the 9/11s with Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin would have been banned, right? So you just want to be a bit more careful on all that. As a whole, though, and that's the whole. I mean, definitely it's interesting to see that these countries are interested in Bitcoin. I think 5 years ago you would have never managed to get even three countries to a place to kind of discuss Bitcoin. And so yeah, that's definitely that's by far the super bullish part. I'm looking at the list though. I would have I would just be a bit more cautious of how fruitful this list could be versus how much yeah, long term kind of ideas we could have. So yeah.
No, I 100% agree. Is there maybe as a point, all that, let's say, earthquake that had happened during the last 2 or 3 weeks? Can you see maybe the regulator jumping into the stablecoin space and like approaching this with, hey, we need to protect these investors?
Ugh, I always hate that term, right? When someone tells me I need to protect investors, to me that's always like, ugh. I always think something is shady. So whenever someone tries to tell you they're just protecting someone, this is like some really shady shit going on. I would love to see like a special regulation around the fiat-backed stablecoins. I mean, that would just put a lot of trust into those stable coins. I think that would be exciting. Um, I always just struggle a bit in understanding how are you going to regulate crypto-backed or even algo-backed stable coins. I just don't even understand how you do that. I mean, of course, you can say that exchanges are not allowed to list them, but that doesn't mean that they are not traded on decentralized exchanges. So I don't fully understand the regulation part for crypto-backed or for algo-backed stablecoins. I don't know. It's just beyond myself how you even are going to try to regulate that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Fabio?
I kind of have I fear that this will lead to investor protection arguments coming up, that certain governments or regulatory bodies will look into what they can do. I fully agree that there are limitations, especially if an algo coin or if a real decentralized stable coin, these things are practically impossible to regulate. But I think that we will see governments trying to do that, and that there is like maybe a little bit of a spillover with other things. Like I just read yesterday or the day before that one of the most crypto friendliest jurisdictions here in Europe is Portugal. And lots of people were moving there from Central Europe, from France, from Germany, from all over Europe. They were moving to Portugal to save on taxes, And it seemed that Portugal was super crypto friendly, but in retrospect, especially after the announcement from a few days ago, it seems that they are not crypto friendly at all. There was just like this hole in their regulation that they practically regulate crypto as a medium of exchange, and now they want to fix that. So um, I'm very alert in what is happening to regulations when it comes to the crypto space. Like you're based in Singapore, so you're, I guess, kind of blessed when it comes to crypto regulations. The same goes for myself. I'm in the Netherlands, so no capital gains tax here. But yeah, we don't know if this is if they kind of voluntary went that path, or if they are just late and haven't touched on possible regulations yet. So I'm definitely watching with two eyes how regulators approach this whole space, and what happens in the near term future. I guess all or a lot is up to the United States, with Biden set up that task force, I think maybe in February or in March, and I think they have a deadline of 180 days. So before the midterms, somewhere in August, they will come out with some kind of paper or some kind of decisions, and I expect that a larger part of the world will follow what the United States is doing.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, I agree, especially US. So yeah. Yeah. I mean, that always leads everything. So sure. Cool. Final topics. I looked through the questions. I didn't see anything that was relevant on my Twitter. I don't know if there's anything on yours.
Maybe something that is dear to me personally, and I know also a few people within the community. And let me kind of, I'm very sorry. It's about the reward dashboard and cake. So all of you that have been with us in the beginning of the year or last year, you kind of got to know this reward dashboard that we have on our website, where it shows you how many rewards you get a day, a month, a year, all time. And we kind of took that down a few weeks ago, because it's like with we are scaling really hard. So we have a lot of new signups, a lot of new customers joining in. And the way it was set up, that reward dashboard, it was practically just crashing our site, because there were so many data points that we needed to calculate and to display. So we took it down temporarily to increase the performance of the website. And as many of you know, the website is performing exceptionally well since we did. We tried to bring it back one or two times, but we instantly noticed that the performance was decreasing to the below our levels of quality that we want to provide to you. This has a really high priority right now, and we know that you want to have that back. We want to have it back as well. Just give us a little bit more time. We are working on it. This has number one priority, and we will bring it back as soon as we found a way to give you both the reward dashboard and the performance that you deserve.
Yep. It's a number one asked question, I think, at the moment. Awesome. Cool. Then, Fabio, thanks so much for taking the time and spending an hour with the community. Appreciate it. From my side, I wish you a really good week. Don't lose your calm or your cools with the price movement, which goes both ways, right? Don't freak out and think you're going to miss the train now if the price is moving up, but also don't kind of lose it all if the price goes below 30,000. I guess that's key. Cool. That's it from my side. Appreciate you. Thanks for being a customer. If you're not a customer yet, what are you waiting for? Seriously. And if you want to work for an amazing company, this is your chance. Get going. And other than that, see you next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.